This conversation about building up your blueprint. It's time to take it cause time is wasted. Go grind and chase it, don't lose it. This generation need integration with information to move with. An inclination that is abiding in entertaining improvement.
What's going on, Blueprint Nation? Welcome to another dope episode of the Respect My Blueprint show, where we give you the blueprint on how to do shit around here, guys. And I am super excited of today's show. Of course, this is your main man, your host, your Blueprint Mastermind. And I have another phenomenal guest here for you, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to give you guys the recipes as well as the strategies on how to build your blueprint in your business and your entrepreneurship journey. All right, this lovely young lady who I have here, she is the founder of Energetic Leadership and Intuitive Leadership Coaching. So she's going to share with us some of the things that we are missing when it comes to building a better business world. All right. So I hope everyone is super excited for today's guest. We're going to take a deep dive into leadership as well as, she's someone from boardrooms to Volvo trucks. She's been pretty much involved in helping companies as well as individuals scale their business, understand business, as well as taking it to the next level. She's breaking the old school rules in doing so. So she's going to show us why intuition, inner power, and next generation thinking are the future of leadership. So, I've rolled out the red carpet for as much as I can, but we are going to hear from none other, than Gitte Madelaire. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I've done my best to roll out the red carpet to you, which is well deserving, right? But of course, the audience, for many of them, this is their first time seeing you and possibly knowing who you are. So I'm hoping if you can go ahead and grace the audience and share a little bit more about who are you and what do you do?
I'm sitting here in Denmark, in Europe. So I'm a bit far away from you guys. I am also a mom of 3 boys, and one of them live in the US, in Chicago. So yes, I have sort of a connection, which is maybe also why I'm here. It feels nice.
Right.
But what is it I'm doing? I have been in corporate life until 3 years ago. And then 3 years ago, I started my own business because I wanted to try and inspire in a different way that I could do from the inside.
Right.
And I wanted to be outside the corporate world. And it's also because I see a lot of things happening both in the world, but that we need to have a different perspective on how we both lead ourselves, but also how we lead our organizations and even our countries. So I have sort of 3 areas that I'm very focused on. And one area is foresight. That we are able, what I call, to look out the window and to understand what's going on. So it's not, of course, you can have a lot of data, but also that you are, authentic, curious about what is happening in the world. As a leader, both leader in your own life, especially as a leader in an organization. So foresight and curiosity. So could we practice our curiosity? The second thing is personal development, so that we look inside ourselves, get more self-awareness, that we practice our presence. And the third thing is, how do we combine all that and transform that into our business leadership? So, and a lot of things are happening here because people are starting to change a lot. They've done that for decades, but it's sort of erupting quite a lot right now. We are seeing a widening of consciousness. We are also seeing people get more sick, stressed, or illnesses, or whatever. We are seeing a lot of red lamps in organization from people either quitting because they are, loudly quitting because they don't like, the culture or the way, but also quiet quitting because they simply sort of, they go to work and they do as little as they can, but they need the money. So we are in an era that is different from it has been the last, couple of hundred of centuries because of the industrial revolution. So it's a more human era we're looking into. And that is quite, for me, quite interesting and very important. Talking about humans is not always very interesting. People would like to talk more about money and how they can make a lot of money, and a lot of money very fast. So I'm maybe more into, yes, we should make money, and a corporation should be, of course, profitable and get a profit, but we have to look at the way we're doing it.
And I completely agree with you because, naturally when you go into business, right, it's about the bottom line. It's about revenue, scaling and growing your business. But if you're not able to build your blueprint within, it's hard to be successful, outwardly. Per se. So, before we get into some of the questions that I wanted to ask here, number one, you're in Denmark. Okay. So, which, by the way, I want to say you're one of, or if not the first international guest that we've had, but for sure the first guest that we've had in Denmark. So, with that being said, how is the business climate in where you're located a lot different than here in the United States?
I think I would start by saying it's to do with both. Denmark is a very little country compared to the US because we are only 6 million. So it's a little country. And it's very flat. But it is also a society that's built on what we call full democracy. So we have a lot of parties. Like we have 12 in our government, and now 3 of them are in the actual government. So it's a coalition.
Interesting.
So the whole way of governing the country is very much based on dialogue. Good conversations like we have now.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
And you constantly have to concede and, give in and negotiate and find way forward.
It's a give and take.
Give and take. So it's not so, what we call here in Denmark, we call black and white, where you only have one party against another party, or sometimes we have had these 12 parties divided, when they get stuck in 2 blocks. And it's really, it's not good for anything because it blocks the whole flow of what you need to do.
Right. It prohibits the actual agenda from moving forward, in other words.
Really, yeah. So I would say the climate is in that sense, it's politically, it's good. The country is also very much based on trust. We are a small country. We have to trust each other, and there's a lot of argument apart from that why we are based on trust. So people are not wearing any kind of weapons. We put our prams outside the cafe with our little baby, and it doesn't get stolen and whatever. So trust in lots of ways, maybe in a naive form, but that is how it is. Business wise, I think we're part of Europe, so the European sort of unity, where we are 27 countries that has to agree to different directions.
Right.
And it's said that in the US, you are very innovative. In Asia, they produce all the goods. And in Europe, they regulate. So we have to be careful about the bureaucracy, that we are, not trying to make everything too complicated, all the paperwork and legislation that sort of makes the businesses go into sort of a dead spin or something. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that's sort of otherwise I would say, the business environment is very good, but we have to be very much aware of bureaucracy because it's killing innovation.
Understood. And okay. So that gives the audience a sense of how the climate is over there. So now you mentioned how you were in the corporate world for a very long time until you recently decided, hey, let me get into entrepreneurship. And and you've written a book called Energetic Leadership. Okay. So
Yes.
before I get into the main question, if I was hoping if you could share a little bit about your book, Energetic Leadership, and what was the inspiration in writing that book there?
Yes.
Was it leaving the corporate, or was it something else that led to that?
I think it was something that came from within. And that's why I liked what you said
Okay.
about, the inner blueprint. I really like the title of this podcast because we all have our individual blueprint,
Right.
and finding back into that blueprint is really what this book is about. So it's not a personal, book in that sense, but it's a book about finding a way forward where you are guided by both your intuition, but
Right.
also, of course, what you want to achieve. So I could say about the book, I was told or inspired to write it back in 2019, and I thought, I'm not a journalist, I'm not a writer, how can I write a book? And what is it going to be about? And then I realized over a year that, okay, I know what it is about. I had lost my job. I also previously, but in that sort of period where you get a break to sort of just be still,
Right.
I did at least be still and listen. Try and just be still in this very noisy world and listen within. Something changed. Something happened.
It just
Going
clicked. Yeah.
yeah, going back, I could also see that I had tried to follow my heart early on in my life. So my parents are divorced, and I thought when I was a teenager, I thought, okay, maybe it's a good thing to find one you really like, one you love. So that is what I wanted to do, and I did.
So-
I did find my husband, and I'm still married to him. So that is sort of, it became very important for me to try and do where I found my energy was flowing. So it's not just love, but where is the energy flowing? So I also quit my job in my early 30s and thought, okay, I want to stay home for a couple of years and look after the children, which was
Okay.
very unusual. You should have a career, you should do all these things. Yes, but no, I want to stay home for a couple of years. And I did. So, but I was also very much guided by, or I don't know, I call it the ego, but not really my heart, but the ego, saying that you should do this and that, and you should work in this kind of jobs and whatever. But I was not truly listening to myself.
Oh,
So that is where the I call it the dance with the ego and the soul. Your soul or your heart, your core
right.
is
Okay.
is really important. So you don't have your ego, forcing you to do something that you really should not do.
You should not be doing.
So yeah. So the book is very much about both very rational knowledge like foresight and be aware of all that, but also the inner knowledge, you could say, the intuition, and
Okay.
I'm combining these two things. So I call it like we should be able to walk on 2 feet. And right now we have a world walking on just the left leg or the left foot. So not having good enough access to our intuition, our reflection, so that we can also have a balanced nervous system. It's all down to our nervous system,
which
really.
leads which leads me, I want to ask you this question because the common conception of intuition, most people would say it's a feminine thing, it's a woman thing, women are the ones that possesses the intuition,
Mhm.
but in the sense of personal leadership and business leadership, is there's truth behind that, or in your experience this is something that's equal amongst men and women?
Oh yes, for me it's got nothing to do with gender. It is we both. You could say it's it's because sometimes I even put it these words on it myself. Masculine energy and feminine energy. But masculine energy, or you could say blue energy and then red energy. But still, people will very often put it align it to gender, but it has nothing to do with gender. Of course, you could say that, you have sort of an advantage in a masculine energy because you are a man, and I have in a feminine energy. But we still both of us still need to reflect on things. You of course you could say you don't have to, or you still need to be have empathy. If you take it into something differently, like sleep, you cannot just go doing things all the time. You need to sleep. So it's sort of that balance. It's a bit like a speeder in a car and a clutch, not in an automobile.
Yeah.
In Denmark, we both used our speeder and a clutch. We don't have so many that are automatic. So in that sense, or you could even put another metaphor on it, like you cannot just live in summertime all
All the
year
time.
round.
Yeah.
A flower needs to die
It
and
needs,
let's
yeah.
start all over again.
Exactly. You must tear down to build back up
Yeah,
again.
and it's the same thing with exercises, or you do something, you have to rest between one exercise and another one.
True.
So it is for me. It's not got anything to do with gender, but I think we mix it up with all the both the diversity, inclusion, and whatever we are talking about in organizations. But that is just sort of, I would say, another topic.
Which, okay, now I want to get into, defining your inner blueprint, right? And of course, like you've mentioned, we're in a different era right now. We're in a very diverse new digital era, right?
Mm.
We just now moved out of the industrial age to now everything is automated. Like there's diversity, inclusion, like you just mentioned. And, with Gen Zs, millennials, and this multi-generational pot that we're in right now,
Mm.
do you believe that the world is ready to go ahead and tear away from the old ways of governance and corporate to now move into this new world? And the reason why I ask that is because, your expertise, your knowledge in teaching, defining your inner blueprint. And I feel that is something that more and more people are awakening to, because like you said, people are quitting their jobs. No longer people are just working for purely the paycheck. People are quitting their jobs simply because they're not happy, whether their boss is not treating them a certain way or the culture is not aligned to what their inner principles are. So do you believe that we are in a world that's ready to accept this new approach? Because obviously this is an approach that you're believing in with your expertise.
Well, I think it's not just me, but it's
Right.
something that's happening. I think the disruption will come from people now. You have said that previously we have disruption. So then we got the internet. Now we got AI. But I think we're looking into a future where the disruption is coming from ourselves, and
Wow.
it's not because we do not want to work. Of course we want to work, because work is actually both fun and it's also very rewarding, and you can also earn a lot of money. But we would like to work in a way that does not make us unhealthy. And
Of course, mentally and physically.
we want to work in an environment that is psychological safe, and we also want to work in organizations or do things that produce products that are healthy, and they are produced in a healthy way. And so from being like a piece of equipment that a company could sort of put in to the machine, it is
Right.
that is where the shift is. We are now the ones who want to decide how we want this world to be driven or led. But there's a lot at stake, because you have to change organizations. Some might even not, they're not valid to exist. If the product is not a healthy product, or people do not want to work there, leaders in charge of that organization should be very much aware. That's going back to the foresight. What is happening? Because we have a lot of crisis. And eventually, if people do not want to work in an organization that is both not very attractive because it's not psychological safe, and it's producing something that is unhealthy for us or ruining the environment and nature, then something is sort of not the best combination.
Right. It's not in the best interest there.
No.
Understood. Right.
So that shift is, but you could say that some people will pull in the other direction. They would like it to be as it has always been. But we have to change something, because eventually, if we just go on doing what we're doing, we need many planets to support the way we live on the planet. So like in Denmark, we're not very, we might have a very good democracy, and we also have trust and all that, but we are consuming too many. We're consuming too many things, not eating in that way, but buying
Outside negative
materialism.
forces.
Yeah, a country like Denmark, we have already used all the resources that we should in March. There's a website called the overshoot date, meaning that when has your country gone over that date where you have used all the resources that you have available. Right. So we are actually needing, you could say, 4 times more in order to be here, which is not very nice feeling that we are, so materialistic. And the Western world is like that. So it's not just Denmark, it's, the US as well, and Europe. We have to sort of come back to a different kind of balance. That doesn't mean that we are not going to have fun and be happy and have food and all that, but it just have to be in a different way and a different sort of structure. So it might not be easy, but
it might not, but nothing great or anything that's has value or worth is easy, right? It takes hard work, dedication, and commitment. And which now I want to get into, leadership now. Mm-hmm. And what do you believe is lacking in leadership nowadays? And of course, I'm speaking in the context of in entrepreneurship aspect. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you specialize in foresight and intuition. Do you believe this is something that leadership is lacking now in today's world?
Yes, it is. And it's not just me saying it. So like one of the cases in the book is from a futurist who works for Ford, the automobile industry, and to try and get more foresight, not just into that company, but to sort of make, whether it's a boardroom or it's a C-suite or it's an entrepreneur, it could even be an entrepreneur, but, to try and get out of the, normal work and really be curious about what is happening, because it's so much different from it has been previously. That is one thing, but it's also that the formula of how you do your business is also going to change. Unless we just want to go down the drain, that is also, we can have fun all the way.
Right.
But then at the end, it's not very nice. And it's not very nice also if you have children, or, look into the future generation, how is it going to be if we do not change something? Or when you get the question, why didn't you do something, Mom?
Right. Good point.
So curiosity and being able to understand what the consequences are of these trends, and what is it that these consequences lead into. They lead into some different competences or skills we have to practice. And one of them is to be better at being present. And when we are present, when you're still, your whole system starts to calm down. Right. And when we start calming down, because we all 8 billions, we all stressed.
Of course.
So when we start calming down, we start opening up to our intuition. And we need our intuition because we need to be able to be more innovative. And we can do that by opening up to our intuition. It's like an iceberg. So
Right.
we're only using 5% of our
Yeah.
consciousness,
You don't see the massive
the
and
massive potential we have. And
right.
it's like you could say a gold mine or whatever, but we have a massive potential that we're not using, which is really a shame, because it both can help us innovate the world, but it
Right.
also help us be more happy and joyful and less sick. So we are, in lots of sense, we become more healthy.
Now I want to push back a little bit here, because what do you say that with the philosophy, right? Some of the consequences that comes behind it, because we're in a world like divisiveness is at an all-time high, right? And
Mm.
people that are acting and moving on pure intuition and moving on just their inner thoughts and everything, sometimes it causes people to be very radicalized. It causes them to, become, social activists and take things to the extreme or things of that nature, right? So, and of course, again, this is good to a degree, because again, you want to have different opinions and different voices and everything. But what do you say when, for those that take it too far, purely on the base of acting off of intuition?
Well, I say that one thing for everything in life is about balance.
Right.
So
Right.
if you
True.
if you are unbalanced in any way, if you are too into your intuition and you are just floating around and doing whatever you feel like, not being also using your rational mind and the way that you should be in life, then it's not working. So it is like anything you could see that's sort of bending in nature. You should be able to bend. Of course, sometimes you can go to the extreme, like when I was writing a book, you go very much into, working, and you're doing something, you're very, using your masculine energy, you're
Right.
producing something, but
Right.
then you also need to go back into, a more calmer period. But you have to do it without breaking,
Of
either
course.
mentally or physically. Or you could say, if you are as a leader, whether it's in a company or in a country, if you are creating divide by being one or the other, then it's not good either.
Understood. Understood. And you're right, because obviously, the news dominates, and especially in the news and the media is largely negative for the most part. And
Mm.
you see so many tragedies and atrocities that happens nowadays. And of course, that was the reason for me asking that question. So now I want to get into, as we've taken a deep dive into the show now, I want to get at some of the solutions. So what is your recommendations for the audience? Because a lot of the viewers here are, like I mentioned to you before, are
Mm.
newly minted or aspiring entrepreneurs.
Mm.
What's some of the solutions or strategies you would share with them in order for them to be able to become a profound business leader, or to help them break through in their business,
I think I have many things I would like to say, but the first thing is to try and going back to be quiet,
be
because,
quiet?
but yeah,
I love it. I
yeah,
love it. Oh, you're right.
because
Right.
it's so opposite of being an entrepreneur, and I know that myself, because suddenly you have all the hats on yourself and whatever. By being quiet, you get help
Mm,
from I call it supporters, or your inside. So
right.
or you could say your intuition. I call it the intuition, or your soul is really helping you. You get connected, so you have a connection between your body and your mind and your soul. And then by being quiet, or self-care and self-awareness and all that, then you are shown, or your stepping stones. So what I mean by that is it becomes much more easy for you to sort of flow and make decisions. So you're not only, of course, you also have to use your brain, but it becomes like more a way of water flowing.
Understood. Okay.
And that will also, when you do that, you will be calmer. You will also be more healthy. And so it's sort of a circle that takes you up. instead of you only using your your right side, your producing, I have to do things and so on. So but you also have to be quiet to let in all the creativity and innovation, because otherwise it's like you are forcing something, like something, down your throat, or when you're forcing, even, you could say when you are selling something, if you try and force people to sell something or to buy something, then they would maybe just forget about it.
Right. They'll push
but
back and say,
but
hey, yeah.
if you are balanced in your way, it's like a magnet, it's click, and you don't even have to do a lot. It just happens because you are in your both your own frequency and resonating, with your true potential. So it comes from a very much more healthy place. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that you are very aware of what is it your purposes, or your why, is a lot of people use it. And I would say for me, it took some years, rewriting it, and what is it, and of course it has some detours, but really be true to where is it I'm taking a decision where I feel that this is not a nice decision for me. I don't feel it could be a relationship, or should I really be doing that or should I work with this customer, or do I dare to say no because this is really not a nice relationship?
Right. Okay.
But of course, it is also a shift that is difficult because we are coming from, I call it the old world,
The old
and
world
we
into the new. Right.
into the new. So we're like we have legs in one, and then you can feel like you're being pulled apart. So that's why it's so nice to have good conversations, to be mentors for each other. That is a way. That is what your podcast is.
Of
It's yeah.
And of course, I think you've given the audience a very profound point there, because it's almost counterintuitive, right? You telling, especially leaders in business, that, hey, sometimes in order to be productive, to be able to break through, you have to be quiet. You have
Mhm.
to settle down and listen to the inner voice and listen to the inner energy, and allow that to sometimes take the lead, right?
Mm.
Which will unlock, like you said, the foresight and the intuition that's required for you to make, the best decisions for yourself and company.
But it's also, if I could make a comment, it's also, one thing is why it's relevant for you as an individual or your
Right.
business, but it's also relevant if we look, going back to Foresight. There's, the speed of our society is very fast. We had lots of technology.
Yes.
So if you are going to, you see some information on SoMe or whatever, you have to be very quick to respond, is this fake or is it, correct?
Right.
And if you are very much, if you cannot sort of you use all your senses and you're not really connected, you only, what I call use your brain, or your ego is running away with you, then it's not very nice. And in very few years, we will see that we will have what I spoke to another guy who was in the tech industry, and he calls it true AI. Where we have AI that is cognitive, where
Okay.
AI is so much educated. You have your AI assistant. So
Right.
Paul the AI, he's sitting there and he is so nice and everything. We still want to be able to make the difference between, the real one and the AI one.
The AI
So
version.
so the real Paul has to be ahead of AI.
Okay.
So we have to be, the best version of ourselves to use it, an old saying.
Like we gave the example of the 5% over the ocean, the
Mm.
iceberg, and so much under. It allows so much to surface, and which ultimately leads to, results in the bottom line, which most people are looking for.
Yeah,
So
that is what we're all looking for.
Right? So, okay. Now, as we're ready to wrap up, and I want to ask you one final question, and this is typically why I ask all of my guests the same thing here, which you shared so many valuable points. But I wanted to ask you if there's one piece of advice you could share with the audience blueprint.
I would have said to be quiet, but
All
I
right.
would then say another thing, that it is important that you also have a body,
Have a body.
a friend, or someone you could talk to who is
Okay.
on your journey. So I call it a body talk. Like, this is also a body talk, two people talking to each other, but make sure that you are not alone, because
Mm,
sometimes we can be very much into, I'm proud, I don't want to share what I'm going through or my difficulties or whatever, but also all the good things. So make sure that and we see a lot of loneliness, and we will also see a lot of turbulence in the years to come, I'm sure. So make sure that you have a buddy, a friend, a mate, or whatever we call it.
absolutely. I mean, we are in more than ever with, billions of people in the world. We're more connected than ever, right?
Mm,
With the internet. I mean, look at us right now.
mm,
15, 20 years ago, this was not even possible, but you're halfway around the world and we're able to have this conversation and connect.
mm,
So,
mm,
I wholeheartedly agree that, not going through anything in life alone, professionally or personally, is not
mm.
the best advice for anyone. So,
So there's also this saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
wow, love it. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Gitte, it was absolutely great to have you on the show. Listen, how can they do so, and how can they follow you as well too?
Yes, they can follow me on my website, which is www.energeticleadership.eu, where they can also find a free workbook, and they can also find the book, Energetic Leadership, and you can get it as a paperback, but you can also get it as a audiobook. So
Okay.
there's lots of ways to get started, and I'm also there for any talks online, or body talks, friends
Body
talk.
talks, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Geeti, it's been absolutely pleasure to have you on today's show. The audience, typically we have, again, thought leaders that come on, and you are definitely one that fills that box here because, I don't like to just have, I think it's equally important, aside from having discussions on, of course, revenue and just the traditional conventional aspects of business, but the intangibles, the inner self, as that allows you to build character, which again allows you to be able to be successful in the outward world. So thank you for sharing your insights and also giving your knowledge and expertise on how to become a better person and defining your inner blueprint.
In a
Okay.
blueprint. I love it.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome. And ladies, you're very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, you could catch the episode of the Respect My Blueprint podcast every Monday, every Friday, 8 p.m. on YouTube, Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. Thanks for tuning in today. Again, this is the platform of how we give you the blueprint on how to do shit around here. And as always, guys, I'm going to catch you on the flip side. Take care, everyone. Peace.
Blueprint, yeah. Blueprint. This conversation about building up your blueprint. It's time to take it, cause time is wasted. Go grind and chase it, don't lose it. This generation need integration with information to move with. An inclination that is abiding in entertaining improvement. Yep, Wesley Paul with Blueprint. His guests are exclusive. Get on and tune in and then learn some new tips about credit, finance, investment. A nice chance to get rich and buy land. Flip it, quick 9 bands. Learn all the skills from Wesley did it. Learn how to build successful business. Run up a mill and get the digits. Run up a mill. Look, safe place where guests are speaking. Based off financial freedom. All facts, no cap, believe it. Podcast, you have to see it.